And we are live, and I just came in from moving the sprinklers, so I'm a little sprinkled on the shirt. I'm sure it'll be dry by the time we're done. Shows have been tending to go close to 2 hours, if not full 2 hours recently. I'm going to try to wrap this one up a little bit quicker. I got a lot to get done this week and into next week because I'm going on vacation, as I told you guys yesterday. Tons of you guys reached out when I said where I was going. If you missed yesterday's show, we are going to Alaska on a cruise ship. I am not a big cruise ship guy, but everybody reached out and said, you are going to love this. Tons of you apparently have done the same thing, and I think of all the places you could take a cruise, the one with the least amount of, like, the party crowd that I don't want to be around is probably Alaska. I don't see a lot of 20-somethings going, woohoo, getting drunk off their ass on a catamaran trip or whatever on a Alaskan Inside Passage cruise. So thank you for all the well wishes. And howdy and hey to William and Johnny, who are saying hi in the chat. If you are here in the chat, thank you for joining us. Remember, if you want to ask a question or make a comment for me to comment on or anything like that, put the word question or comment in all caps, followed by your question or your comment. And I will be more likely to see it than if you don't do that. I try to do it for everyone, but it doesn't always happen. So what do we got today? Well, we missed something yesterday as long as the show went. I meant to do it. It was in the notes, but I never covered it. This idea I have about should the people who fund protests be responsible for the results of the protest with some, mitigation and aggravating circumstances as always within the law. But might we have a lot less places burning down if, your foundation paid for all of these, because they're paid protesters, whether you want to believe it or not. And then they come in and burn the shit down, and there was a reasonable expectation that you knew that damage could occur. I mean, it's true of many other things under the law, isn't it? It technically is true right now for protests, but that no one has ever been sued or prosecuted for it that I can find as the funder. And I heard some objections from special libertarians, and I frankly disagree to the nth degree. If we're going to be consistent with existing law. Next up, though, Orange Man did a 180. Made me look bad. He did it in one day. It's usually not one day that Jack was wrong. But I was reporting the facts. Trump came out of Alaska. U.S. will provide security guarantees in Ukraine, not EU troops. He brings in all the Euro clowns yesterday, and all of a sudden it's going to be European troops in Ukraine on the ground because, well, the people of this country don't want to pay for another foreign military endeavor. I'll tell you how I think he might have sold that to Putin and how I might have been wrong from the get-go, that it might have all been a setup anyway. And now that I think about it, it makes sense. And if I'm going to be wrong, I like it to be that way, that I could sit back and go, oh, okay, we'll see. But also, he also just dropped the orange hammer. I'm going to play a little clip by Trump. And man, there's a lot of things I don't like about this guy, but there's also a lot of things I do like about this guy. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, man, I'm so glad this man is president instead of Cackles. Just flat out, right? No matter how bad this guy is, the bad would be worse under Cackles, and we'd have none of the good, as far as I'm concerned anyway. But yeah, the orange hammer came down. I don't know on who. We know it was one of the dudes of the delegation of the Euro clowns. It wasn't the Italian PM, who would be my last bet, but it also wasn't Ursula, who would have been my first bet. But when you hear the comment, you'll see why we know it wasn't her. Republicans, by the way, we're pro Second Amendment. Woohoo! Second Amendment, baby! Yeah, do not mess with our guns. Do not tread on me, except if it's somebody else. So in D.C. right now, and I'm not opposed to this per se, I'm opposed to glorifying a piece of it. Trump's DOJ and FBI and National Guard have taken over in D.C. Now, there's a bunch of libtards out there saying, I live in D.C., and all the National Guard doing is just standing around. Yeah, you don't think that has an impact on crime? You see a whole bunch of dudes with M16s or M4s, I guess, standing around. I'm going to tell you it works. I'll tell you, and when we get to it, I'll tell you how I know it works, even if it's not actual military. People just standing around with guns, yeah, it has a negative effect on crime. But They're arresting people. They're getting them off the streets. They're cleaning up the slums. They're cleaning up the homeless encampments, all of that good stuff. Yeah. But they're also like bragging about all the arrests they make every day. They're giving you a report. We've been this many arrests, this many drug seizures, this many of this and that and that. And we seized 21 guns or whatever number of guns it is. And the Republicans are like, woohoo! But they're not saying we seized the gun from a felon. We seized a gun that was illegal in the sense that it was stolen or something like that, right? The person was actively committing a crime and we caught him and we took the gun. Okay, all of those, even if I'm not 100% on board, are legitimate under our law and under our Constitution. But you find a guy, and D.C. has an onerous permitting requirement, and then you're like, okay, he has a gun. We're going to take his gun because he has a gun without a permit. Thought Heller D.C. kind of put the brakes on that shit, but apparently not because, yeah, you still have to have a permit in D.C. to have a gun, including like long guns, not just handguns, and not necessarily on your person either, like in your vehicle. So by the letter of the law, should they be seizing these guns? Yeah, but should Republicans be cheering for it? We'll talk about that for a bit today, just a little bit. Then, I really believe if we are going to have free food for all in this country, right? Like the EBT program, we used to call it food stamps. Now it's EBT because that sounds better, I guess. We don't want to offend the people getting charity, that they're getting charity, though they don't seem very offended. But I'm going to play a video for you. I don't think I'll play the whole thing. It's like 4 minutes long, but we'll see when I start playing it how much we can tolerate. It's a very, very obese woman who says she's 27 years old and works full time. My gut on works full time is that we don't really know what that means to this person. I think of I remember my son. Now, he did work hard, but, he would work, let's say, like 10 hours as a bartender and say he worked a double shift, right? It's not a double shift, man. I love my son, but a double shift is 16 hours. A shift is 8 hours. What he meant is he worked an extended shift. I worked 10 hours was a normal freaking day. 12 hours, oh my God, that was a super double shift. And 12-hour day was pretty standard for me on a normal day, not even a long day when I was his age that he was doing that. So not to lump my son in with this lady, but I'm just saying sometimes people say words and what they say, what is it? You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. I think that's what might be going on here. Regardless, the food this woman that we paid for, and this will be one of those videos you won't lose the point if you're an audio listener, which most of you are, but you might want to actually come by the video. And when I do it, I'll tell you the timestamp. Because when you see this woman and the children moving around behind her, it will take it to a whole new level. The 27-year-old thing really takes it to another level because I don't think it's ever good to be obese. But 27 and obese was a very rare thing just a few years ago in this country. Right? When I say few, there's a few decades, right? That's when you get old, you got the gray beard, it's a few years ago. But then that led me to another question here, because I'm thinking about this, and I've talked about this many times when we've talked about keto and carnivore. I've talked about it with Ken Berry. I've talked about it with Annie McCann. Keto and carnivore work. There is no doubt. It may not be as obvious with the giant Santa beard that I'm growing this year, but go back, a couple of months before I started putting this back on. And look at a video of me, and then look up a video of me from, let's say, 2016. And just look at my face, and you can see the difference. So we know it works. Are we maybe a little bit wrong about why it works or what's really going on? Or is it something in the middle? I'll talk about that today. Least you think I cannot be open-minded and question even my own conclusions. Then I have another question for you. This is just an interesting one. Will AI speak become human speak? What do I even mean by that? I'll go deeper into it, but what I mean by it is right now, it's not just me. It's not like I'm super smart. There's a lot of people out there that have picked up on certain tells that the thing you're looking at was written by AI. I remember recently I read a thread, and it was about something Robert Kennedy did. And it wasn't like he didn't just he installed it. And I'm like, oh, that's AI. And I go to shitpost flame the guy. And as soon as I click on his, like the comment stream, it's like AI wrote that for you. Did you get that from GPT? Right. So I wasn't the only person that instantly went, this is an AI post. Or I'll sometimes when I'm reading threads, which is where, if you're not familiar on X, since each post can only have so many characters, what people will do is make a multi-part post that will like break down a political conference or something, like a guy that was on TV and did an interview. Sometimes you read it, you go, you had AI write that whole thing for you. There's just certain tells, right? It's not this, it's that would be one of them. The EM dash, which is the long hyphen that substitutes for a period, a colon, a semicolon, who the hell knows what, whatever. Like, it just really loves those. And there's some other things that you just like, this is how AI talks. And even if you train it to use your own voice, you have to be aware of these things. And that's part of what we teach in the AI course, to actually cleanse the AI speak out of it. But the AI speak is there, and most people don't know how to do it and won't. My real question is, will it become human speak? That might not seem to make sense, but when I explain it, I think it will. And then the last one is just a little interesting tidbit to me for a variety of reasons. It's another Orange Man play to a degree, because I think Orange Man was behind it more than we know. And Orange Man is talking about the United States government grabbing a stake of this too. But the company Intel, the chip manufacturer Intel, is really had some hard times lately. The guy running it is something Tran. His last name something Tran, and he has some real ties to China. Trump kind of criticized him, says this guy needs to go. Intel needs to get rid of this guy. He's got real conflicts of interest here. Intel's an American company. He doesn't have America or Intel's best interests at heart. And along came not an American company, Japanese company. And they just used $2 billion to buy 10% stake in Intel. Intel is an old school company, even though it's a modern thing, chips and whatnot. But they're old school in the way that they pay a dividend. Well, nice little income stream there if you can write the ship. And of course, the stock price of Intel jacked up a couple points from that, because it's a good sign. New infusion of capital, better protection against, like if you drive a stock low enough that somebody can come in and parasite buy it and then deconstruct it and sell off the bones. So that's less likely to happen. Now, Trump's rattling about a stake in Intel. But the company from Japan that bought the stake, SoftBank. Now, half of the audience just went, yeah, whatever. And half of you went, oh. Those of you that went, oh, you have pattern recognition, you pay attention. SoftBank is 1/3 of the consortium creating 21 Capital. Now, Intel does not manufacture chips used in ASIC miners, but something still is clawing at the back of my neck, going, if I'm a giant financial conglomerate and I am clearly sticking my finger up after licking and going, the wind blows Bitcoin, or I wouldn't be doing this with 21 Capital, Tether, and Strike, and I just bought one of the largest legacy technology chip manufacturing companies on the planet, about 10% stake in it. I just feel maybe something's there. Just not sure what it is yet. AI says there's nothing to it, Jack. You're wrong. Sometimes Jack's right and AI is wrong. So that's what we're talking about today. Let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. And sponsor of the day number one today is Biltong USA. That is Anton von Buren, who is from South Africa, legally came to and became a citizen of our country and set up a business. That's the kind of person we need coming to America. And, he got his business off the ground and running, and then COVID hit. And he had like a little deli restaurant grocery with all these cool imported things from all over the world. And COVID hit and everything got shut down. And he said, what is my highest returning profit product that I can ship? And it was no doubt Biltong. And he blew up his company during a time when a lot of companies went out of business by thinking differently, and because his products are great value and it freaking is amazing. There's a lot of people out there selling what they're calling Biltong. Most of it is not Biltong. It is, in fact, bullshit. Or if it's okay, it's still very expensive. Anton, this is the best you'll try that you can buy commercially and some of the most affordable because he sells them by the half pound and up. Check it out today at BiltongUSA.com. And remember, use your MSB discount when you shop at Biltong USA and check out the other stuff he sells. The Chihuahuan smoked salt, bro. Like, he has some smoked seasonings. He has like a smoked black pepper. Oh my God, that is amazing. Smoked paprika, lots of other really cool stuff. And if you want to make your own biltong, he even sells the seasoning he uses to make his biltong so that you can make your own. So check it out. Hey, Sean says, love the show since 2012. Thanks, Jack. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. That would be the benefit of being in a live chat, getting to communicate with me like that. Anybody can do it. The best way to do it is what? Okay. It says it lost the screen share. Can anybody tell me if you guys can see the screen share that I'm doing right now? Because I just got a notice from StreamYard that says you can't see it, but it looks like everything's working fine to me. Anyway, let's just go ahead to our, okay, it says we're good. Our next, anyway, if you want to be in a live stream, join the Telegram channel or group, and you will get a notice every day of what we're talking about, what time. That was the best way to not miss it. And you can always check out tspclive.com. All right, next up, above phone. Break limits and go above. One of the things I really recommend you do, if you're not sure if you're ready to buy your own above phone or above tablet or above book yet and take your tech back, at least get buyabovphone.com. Go to our website and click the link on our website. That will give you access to the special report you can see advertised on your screen right now if you're watching the video. 5 must-change privacy settings for iPhone or Android. At least do a better job of protecting your privacy with the device you have. And then start thinking about, why do you even have to do that? And then think about all the privacy settings you can't change. And then think about, when you change the privacy setting, is it real? Or are you still being tracked and having your data sold? You know which one that is. And then think about the fact that you might have an app you really like, and one day it goes away because it pissed somebody off, so they just got rid of it out of the app store. That's happened more than once. And then think about this. If you had an above phone, none of that would matter. And think about the fact that if you're an MSB member, you get $75 off any phone at above phone. An MSB membership is only $50. So it's a really great membership perk. Check them out today at abovephone.com. But if nothing else, get this free report. Again, click the link. Go to the Survival Podcast. Click on the banner for Above Phone in the right-hand margin. That'll take you to this page where I guarantee you'll see this pop up. And you'll be able to get that free report because it's really, really eye-opening when you see what you can change, and then you realize that why did I have to do that? It's kind of like people that use Facebook. I'm like, well, then you should install a browser extension called Facebook Container, and then you should ask yourself why you have to do that and what it means when you don't. It means a lot. Anyway, moving on real quick before we get into our first story today. We do have the ChatGPT course will be going on sale the Monday I get back from my vacation. That'll be the 8th of September. It's Monday morning, 9 a.m. You have to be on the list. We'll email out. We'll probably do some reminders coming soon to get everybody remembering. But, when that goes on sale, it is going to go fast. And what I just wanted to do for you today is I'm going to, for the next few days until I'm gone, I'm going to read one of our testimonials from our class 1 as to what they say. Here's a guy some of you will know, David Bennett. David says, I took this course more for Jack's marketing experience than the AI portion, and neither fell short. I love taking this class, and I ramped up my AI skills well beyond what I had imagined. It was a step function increase in me being able to harness AI tools effectively. As far as the marketing side goes, I started out thinking I couldn't market my way out of a wet paper bag with holes in it. Jack changed that for me within 40 days. If you are thinking about taking this class, stop. Just buy the class. You will have all the materials to retake the class again at whatever pace you choose, and you will want to take the class again. David Bennett, host of the Bitcoin End podcast. Thanks, David. I appreciate that testimonial. Like I said, there's a bunch of them, and I'll keep reading like one a day for you until I disappear. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get into the subjects we have for today. I kind of already went over what they're going to be, but what we're going to start off with is what I missed yesterday. And I was just sitting and thinking about this. There are so many instances where you can pay somebody to do something, and they go do it, and they cause harm when they do it, and you can be held legally responsible, sometimes civilly and sometimes criminally. And sometimes the civil is a private civil matter, and sometimes it's a public civil matter, meaning you can be prosecuted by the state in a civil charge of you owe us money because you caused us damage, not we're trying to put you in prison. And you can be prosecuted criminally, where you could go to prison, but what you end up with is a fine. And effectively, even if they call it a criminal conviction, it goes down on your record that way. But it's more civil because it was money versus your freedom. And there's a lot of places that could happen. Now, here's my question. And when I put this on social media, there were some people, again, I call them the special libertarians. They're always looking for the way out of something like this, to always be opposed to anything that's a new law. And that's because they live in a fantasy land where no laws should exist, not laws from the state anyway, that things should be enforced through private property, private ownership, and private management and private litigation. I agree. That is perfect. We don't have it, and we're not going to freaking have it. And all of you will be dead. Your kids will be dead. Your grandkids will be dead. And your great-grandchildren will be dead. And we still won't be there. It might be a better way to be, but we're not going to be there yet because people are not ready to be there. So with that in mind, I always look at things through the lens of the normies, right? What makes sense based on everything else that we have in place that most people are okay with? So to go to an extreme, if I hire a hitman and he kills you, I can be prosecuted for murder. If I hire a hitman, it turns out he's not a hitman, right? And he runs to the police and says, hey, this crazy jackass over here named Jack tried to hire me to off, Lily Farm food, right? And I don't know what to do. And they say, okay, hey, how about you go talk to him again? We'll give you a wire, you get a warrant, and they get in touch with me. And then, okay, I get arrested either for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, maybe both charges, who knows? And I'm going down. Now I hired you to do a crime, and I knew you were going to do a crime when I hired you. And that was one of the leverage points the special libertarian folks were trying to pull on. But hold on, there's more. When you look at what happens when you have mass scale protests, it is very obvious that there is a risk that is absolutely associated with a protest of any scale and size. More often than not. In other words, if 51% is the threshold, we're way past 51%. Large-scale protests, more than half the time, result in physical harm and massive property damage, sometimes entire city blocks burning down. When you have no vetting process for the paid protesters that you're hiring, or potentially, dare I say, sometimes you're specifically hiring ne'er-do-wells and worse on purpose because it's the result you want. Well, what about somebody that donated to Black Lives Matter? Some soccer mom, shut up. That would never happen under this. What we're talking about is the organization that pays the bill, not the donors to the organization. It is completely reasonable that Karen in St. Louis would have no idea when she's trying to get out of her white guilt and she writes a check to one of these organizations that they're not going to do something evil with it. I'll give you that. The person that says we need, 6 buses full of paid protesters brought into Las Vegas or whatever, they know what they're doing. And if you look at some of the people that have been arrested at these protests for inciting a riot, for vandalism, etc., they've been to many different protests all over the country funded by the same people. All I'm suggesting, the Soros Foundation, the Tides Foundation, whatever, cuts a check for $500,000 to fund a protest in a town, and that town ends up with like $20 million worth of damage done. Shouldn't we be looking at the person that funded the thing that caused the problem? Let's look at it a different way, right? Let's say that I set up an event in downtown Fort Worth and I put no real oversight who got to come to it, and I brought a bunch of people in there and it turned into a giant riot. You don't think the city of Fort Worth is on some level going to charge me with some shit because I'm the one that put it all together? You don't think that maybe some business owner is not going to rightfully sue me if they can prove that I am, in fact, part of the cause? And even if I'm only part, you say, well, you're not really the whole cause. I mean, we can't control what everybody does. What percentage of the problem are you? Maybe that's the percentage of what you owe. Oh, and if you really knew, if I can show a list of people on the list of people you knew were part of the people you were hiring and putting on a bus and sending across state lines, which makes it federal, by the way, had real potential to do harm. Like, I don't know, the random pedophile, like friggin' Kyle Rittenhouse fires 3 shots, hits 3 people, and hits 2 of them are pedophiles and wife beaters. I'm saying maybe there's a high preponderance of those people. Maybe you're not just civilly liable, maybe you're criminally liable. Now, what people also said, and I think they're sort of right, well, if you could prove that, there's already recourse for the state or a private entity to sue civilly or prosecute criminally. But it's never happened. Now, it is no secret who's funding this shit. It is no secret the methods that they operate by. It is no secret that most of the protesters you see in the street are funded protesters. They are not organic. It's an organic illusion that you have to have an IQ of about 84 or lower to believe is organic. I'm sorry, you do. And you can have a higher IQ in some areas and a lower in some areas, and your social and pattern recognition IQs are dog shit if you think these protests are actually organic. Now, what they often do is they send these instigators in. This gives cover, and then an organic riot builds against an inorganic protest. And again, I believe that these organizations do this intentionally. I'm just saying, if there was real potential that the people that run these organizations could face jail time or fines that exceed the amount of money they grift through, they might be less likely to do it. The Constitution guarantees our right to peacefully protest. It does not guarantee our right to riot. It does not guarantee our right to block highways. See, when you block a what is the cost? What is the cost of shutting down an interstate for 4 hours? Oh, we can't put a price on it. Oh, but we can. Oh, but we effing can. Because if somebody has need to shut it down, they put a price right on that shit by the minute. They tell you exactly what it will cost you to have traffic redirected. If it's pre-scheduled and approved, there is a number that already goes there, and that's without any inconvenience. I think we could end these summers of love type shit forever with that kind of legislation. I don't think it'll happen. I just thought it was an interesting thing to look at. And I don't think it's without precedent at all, but I think without law that is specifically directed at it, it will never happen. Or it's going to take a very creative prosecutor to make it happen. Moving on. Arshman did a 180 on me. Yesterday, I came on the show and I said, I kind of thought in advance that Putin might be like, hey, look, you want security guarantees for Ukraine? Do it with U.S. force, and we're okay with it because we trust America. We don't trust Germany. We don't trust France. We don't trust Belgium. We certainly don't trust Turkey. Like, NATO can mean anything out of that, mishmash of nations. Well, Trump brings Ursula and I can't think of her name now, the Italian bird, and Steimer and the president of Finland and a few other Euro clowns over to the United States for the meeting with Zelensky, and they talk. And Trump, like in the middle of the freaking meeting, says, hold on, I'm going to go talk to Vladimir Putin, right? Makes like a 30-minute call to Putin, comes back into the group. Like he's working this shit like work in a room, right? And what comes out of this is that, in fact, Russia is open to allowing security guarantees as long as Ukraine is not part of NATO. And if that turns out that it's French troops or UK troops or German troops, well, maybe if everything else lines up, that's okay. Jack was wrong. Wah, wah, okay? But when I look at it now, I think, what I've always said about negotiations, especially when Trump's involved, you have to ask for more than you want. In a negotiation, if you're like, I want these 5 things, and somebody says, well, we can give it on this if you give it on that, and you go, nope, Well, what about number two? Nope. Three? Nope. Four? Nope. Five? Nope. Okay, right there, negotiations end. Unless the other party absolutely that would be unconditional surrender in a war, right? Unless one side absolutely needs it and was always willing to say yes to everything anyway, that negotiation that could have worked with those five things doesn't. Because now the other side's unreasonable. Now the other side wants to continue the conflict or the negotiation, whatever, right? They're unreasonable. They're crazy, whatever they come up with. But if the person that wants five things lays out nine and four are sandbags, four are things they're willing to give up. And those four things seem like the least reasonable things out of the five. If you're a smart negotiator, you should clue in on those immediately and go, we should actually pull at some of the other ones because they're willing to give those four up. That's what a master negotiator does in a negotiation. Okay. Trump, hate him if you want to. He's a damn good negotiator. He really is. So I can see this conversation having happened up in Alaska. We'll say that it's going to be U.S. troops. But Vladimir, bro, let me explain how this works. Like once this deal's done, once this deal's over, Ukraine is a sovereign country. If they decide they want to enter in an agreement to like have a joint military base, east of Kyiv or something like that, and have multiple nations troops hosted there, there's nothing you can do about it. And let's be honest, bro, you're not going to restart this war over that. You're not going to do that. You want an assurance that the Ukraine does not become part of NATO. We're willing to do that. How about I go out and say this, then all the clowns will come over and they'll say this other thing. And I don't want to do it anyway because then we have to pay for it. And America wants less foreign adventures for our military, not more. And so I can look like I did it. You can look like you gave in, and they'll feel like they got something when they were going to get that anyway, even if they didn't get it with the deal. And that's the important part. That's a good thing to give up. I'm going to give this thing up as part of a deal. But I know that I need the deal, and the other side needs the deal, and we both want the deal. And once the deal's made, the thing that I'm negotiating on, once the deal's done and it's over and it's said and done, they can do it anyway, and I can't stop it. That's a perfect one of those extra items to throw in. So that's what I think happened. I could be wrong, but that's what I think happened there. Now, the next thing I want to do, though, and this is a lot of things I cover on Trump. I'm just love him or hate him. I'm just telling you what happened. This, I actually find to be one of his best moments in history. This little 30-second soundbite I'm fixing to play for you right now. Let me get my mic muted before I hit play so that we don't have any crosstalk. Wow. I think that one is really easy to gloss over and not understand, like the guy that's being the biggest adult in the room there. You've got these people 48 hours before this happened didn't know for sure it was going to happen. I mean, there might have been some pre-arrangements made. Packrat says there was no audio on that. Did anybody else get no audio on that? Huh, no audio. Well, damn it. That doesn't make any sense. That always works. Okay, I'm gonna hit play again. You guys tell me if you hear it. So I don't know why I didn't mute my mic that time. You should have heard it at least cross talking through my mic. I don't know why that's happening. So anyway, there's a link if y'all want to pull it up. Those of you on audio, I'll take out those empty spots, and that's why it seemed like a jump cut on you. But basically, Trump is talking about this meeting, and what he said in it was, "Damn, I don't know why that didn't work." What he said it was during this meeting. One of the Europeans that were there as part of the delegation said, let's meet again about this in another month or two. 30 to 60. We had a meeting. Like, these people are professional meeting takers, right? We had a meeting. And, okay, we all said nice things to each other. We all played a little grab ass and ball cupping under the table. We all feel better about it. Let's just do this again in a month or two. And Trump is, are you kidding? And what he says in the audio that unfortunately you couldn't hear, and I hope the next audio segment works. I don't know if maybe StreamYard changed something here, but he said, if you wait that long, another 40,000 people will die. We have to do this tonight. And then he said, and I walked out, paused the meeting, and called Putin at that moment and set it up so that we can move to this third meeting where it's trilateral, meaning it's Zelensky, it's Putin, and it's Trump. And it looks like that's going to happen now. Okay. I don't know that there is a person that could be president right now that would have taken that approach. And again, for all the things I don't like about Trump, that is the approach to take right now. You tell me who. Who else could be president? DeSantis? I actually like a lot of things about DeSantis. I don't see him doing that. He's a neocon. He's a friggin' neocon. Ted Cruz? Forget about it. That's kind of your bench. Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley would be, entering World War III so she could buy a bigger house. In Ramaswamy's words, Ramaswamy was never going to be president, not even close. So I don't know anybody on the Republican side other than Trump that could be there at this time that would do that. Did you see Cackles with us? Are you kidding me? Would you even, oh my God, all of you that voted for that nutbag, you were flirting with World War III because you don't like Orange Man. This was honestly one of Orange Man's finest moments. And I think it does put us on a path toward peace. And as I said yesterday, I will be absolutely shocked if this war is still going on by Christmas time. I don't see any way this year ends and that war is still hot. And at that point, I know some of you got really upset when I said this last week. But again, you have to judge things based on the standard that the normies have for their own shit, not our standard. Because almost nobody that got the Nobel Peace Prize since freaking Gandhi would have gotten a Nobel Peace Prize if we were in charge. So if this happens, the hell with what Hillary Clinton said. It doesn't mean anything. I'll explain that in a second. Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. The bro is ending like a war or a conflict a month. He just ended the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict that's been going on for 27 years. 27 years. And it's not just two nations pissed. It's a blood feud. It's one of the hardest types of conflicts to put an end to. So, yeah, this is worth having him for all his bad, because most of the bad you were going to get anyway. That's how I look at Trump. Now, let's move on to another thing, though, you Republicans. I'm a Republican, and I don't care, Jack. I don't believe in your libertarian nonsense. I'm a small government Republican. I'm even a libertarian with a small L. Yeah, then why are you cheering on seizing weapons from people who didn't commit any other crimes except having the weapon? Even if you're kind of like, okay. Now, I'm seeing people left and right on X. Look at what Trump's doing. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Look what the FBI did last night in D.C. We seized 8 guns. No explanation. And the most logical explanation is it's Washington, D.C. You can't just have a gun. I'm not even saying that if I'm in that role, knowing the problems there, that I might not understand why you're doing it. But I believe your right to keep and bear arms is your right, not your privilege. I don't believe any government anywhere has a right to tell you that they can't. And even if I accept that it's going to happen, if I accept that some of the laws are in fact unconstitutional, I also accept in our current system that that's what law enforcement's going to do. You come up on a guy for whatever reason you have, you're able to engage with him. He tries to run away, whatever. You have some legal cause, as long as the cause to search is legal under code, right? And you do, and you find a gun on him. Well, if it's an illegal gun in that jurisdiction, I get that you take it, but I'm not going to cheer you on for it. I'm not going to cheer you on for it. Liberty Gardens back on Trump says, don't forget the Indonesian-Thailand conflict. And how about the Pakistan-India conflict? These are two nuclear powers. They're on the edge of war. Shut it down in a couple of days. Yeah. But anyway, going back to this, like I'm not going to cheer for the cops taking a gun. Whenever these law enforcement organizations post a picture and it's like, we seized an arsenal, and it's like a 9mm and a shotgun and like 12 rounds of ammunition for the 9mm, and they're like 5 different. I get it too. Like that's probably from someone that meant harm, right? But it's like because they have like 5 different ammunition types in one magazine that, of course, the cops that are geniuses and experts call a clip, and then a shotgun with like 10 rounds of buckshot or something, and it's an arsenal. I'm like, boy, you better not come to my house. You're gonna shit your pants if you come to my house. By the way, all my shit's legal in my state. But I'm not going to cheer this on. And I don't think we should be cheering this on. And whenever I see cops post that, I'm like, so you stole their property. Now, if they're like, we made a bust and we went into this drug house and they had kids sex trafficked in there and we took their drugs and their money and their guns, then I'm like, you know what, guys, good job. Good job. But like when it's just, we found these illegal firearms. And then half of the time, if it's New York City, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, there's like every precinct in New York City has its own Facebook page. And they're constantly posting the dangerous weapons they get off the street. And they've included such dangerous weapons as gel splat guns, water guns, airsoft guns, BB guns, and paintball guns. These people are clowns. They should not be cheered on for taking people's lawful property from them. They just shouldn't be. But they are. All right, now let's talk about something else. I hope that this video, that there was something weird with the last video and that this video works. I'm going to hit play for just a second. I am then going to come back and I'm going to ask you if you heard it, giving time for the delay. And if you did, then we'll go back to it. So here we go. Here's a little bit of a test. Can somebody in the chat? Okay, you didn't hear that. Okay, there's got to be something they changed in StreamYard settings, and I don't know that I can figure it out today. So that's unfortunate. But what I'm going to do, since that's the case, I'm gonna run this video with the volume down, so you can see her when I'm talking about this. She is supposedly a 27-year-old full-time employed mom, and she's showing all of the food that she just bought. Divine Fungus has jiggled the handle. I don't think that's going to work. She's showing all the food that she's going to buy, and about the only thing she's shown so far that isn't complete garbage was a pack of Lipton tea. She's now got 5 bags of French fries, 5 jumbo bags of frozen French fries. Boxes of fudge rounds, right? Channeling a little bit of that song from not so long ago. She does have a couple cucumbers, a loaf of bread, and bananas. So she went to all the stores. She went to like 5 different stores, 6 blocks of cheese, a giant watermelon, 2 tubs of mayo, because in her words, we've been going through a lot of mayo around here. 1 dozen eggs. I don't even know what that crap is. More garbage. More mouthwash. I guess you guys need that. And it just keeps going. And this is like 5 minutes of and another 6 blocks of cheddar cheese, bottle after bottle of Dr. Pepper and other sodas. Her daughter is behind her. She's obese. The woman is seriously obese. I'm not even sure that's a daughter because she looks a bit old to be this lady's daughter if this lady is, in fact, only 27, which I also doubt. But this family is Mountain Dew, just more and more crap food. And since you guys can't hear it, giant mega box of Fruit Loops, giant bags of Doritos, buttermilk, 5 pounds of sugar, gallons of milk, cheese crackers, more Fruit Loops, double stuffed Oreos, mega packs of Capri Suns. She bought a little bit of meat, a little bit of steak there. The kid's got some kind of floppy piece of bread behind him. At least he ain't fat. More steaks. Okay, she's got a couple steaks, a pack of chicken. There's just some real food here. Oh, holy shit. 32 frozen pizzas. 32 frozen pizzas. Like it's a tower for Braden, and she will cry because he's going to be so happy now that she has them. Kool-Aid, okay, at least that's halfway decent. That's halfway like an 80s kid eat that. Now, if you want to actually hear this woman talking and get a better understanding of this, you can go and use the notes and use the link and go listen to it for yourself, because I'm going to move on. For some reason, again, I'm going to have to investigate what changed with StreamYard. They change things all the time. Y'all should be able to hear that. And that screws up a lot for me, too. And it worked yesterday, so I don't know what's going on. But I think I'm not going too far out on a limb here when I say we need reform to the food stamps, EBT, free food, call it whatever you want, program. Now, RFK is doing this, and he started by empowering the states to place restrictions because they do block grants to the states for this shit. And the state of Texas manages EBT in Texas, California, Georgia, Florida, that type of thing, which makes sense because they're closer to the beneficiary. I was going to call them the customer, but they ain't customers because they ain't paying for nothing. The beneficiary of these programs, and they can do better oversight than some federal idiot up in D.C. I get that. However, some of these states seem to be even more corruptible than the federal bureaucrats. And so RFK has basically said, if you want to say certain types or classes of food are not okay on your EBT program, if you want to set it up so that when they get their card charged up and they go to the store and they try to buy 2-liter bottles of soda, it won't do it, you can. Of course, he's been attacked for this. He's racist. He doesn't care about children's needs, and children deserve sweets, and people have a right to eat what they want and whatever. You have a right to do whatever you want as far as what you eat, what you put in your body, as far as I'm concerned. You have a right to eat the most garbage food on the planet if you want to, but you don't have a right for me to buy it for you. Let's talk about what EBT is supposed to be for. It is supposed to be for individuals and or families who would otherwise go without food without it. In other words, people who are in need, not deserving, right? This isn't like, oh, these are the wonderful people that deserve some free food. These are people that have filed paperwork and said, without this program, here's our income, here's how many people in our household. Without this extra food, we will be hungry. Does she look hungry to you? Well, she looks like she's always hungry to me. I'm just saying. But you know what I mean? Does she look like she's starving to you? Does she look like she's going without? Did that young girl waddling around behind her look like she's doing without? God bless that boy and the genetic lottery he won that he hasn't blimped out yet, because he looks like he's a teen. I don't think this woman's 27. I think she's 37 is being generous. I also doubt that she works full time, but let's just say that she does. That's fine. That we shouldn't be giving people this food. And RFK Jr.'s summation on this, and I completely agree with it. First, we're taking money from taxpayers and we're giving it to these people. And then we're taking other money from these taxpayers because if you're getting EBT, you're probably also getting medical assistance from the state, Medicaid, right? Or Medicaid. Yeah, Medicaid. And we're giving the children diabetes. And I guarantee you that boy probably don't, but that girl behind her has type 2 diabetes. And that woman has type 87 diabetes. I'm sorry. She does. And we're giving them diabetes with the food that we're paying for with taxpayer money. And then we're paying for the treatment of their diabetes with more taxpayer money. And this needs to stop. And of course, that makes him a racist, a xenophobe. He hates brown people, whatever else they can come up with. And there are people saying something I completely agree with. Dean Mullis is saying, there's other people saying versions of it. Nutrition-wise, she is starving. Yes. But that's not my point. Calorically, that woman is not starving. That is not just obese. That's morbidly obese. And if she's not lying about her age, what do you think she'll look like at 45? And how many limbs will she have lost by then? And how much will it cost us to pay for it, plus her dialysis, because that's her future? I'm sorry. There's no way around that. If that woman really is the age she says she is, and again, I highly doubt it, by the time she's 47 in 20 years, if she has both feet, she'll be lucky. If her kidneys, if she hasn't blown her kidneys, she'll be lucky. She'll probably be on over $20,000 a year minimum in medication because we helped her. This system needs reform. I don't think that you should be buying anything that could be considered junk food or even a luxury if you are an assistance for food. And I think back to like my family was not well-to-do. We just weren't. My dad always did well. My dad was also my source of the concept of it's between me, you, and the fence post when it's cash money. And most of my dad's life, in fact, he still does, lived in a poverty state, even though he had lots of money because he hid his money. He's Lucius Clay from the Charlie Daniels song, okay? The rest of the family was actually, and it's probably why he was that way, the rest of the family's freaking broke. So my grandma used to get food assistance. There were no food stamps, and there was no EBT card. There was like once a month, if you qualified, you could go to a place and you stood in a line, kind of like a bread line in the Soviet Union, but nobody wanted to call it that, right? Of course, we had the line for people that couldn't afford food. They had the line because that's how you got food. There's a difference. And she would go down there and get whatever they would give out that month. And she would get like basically what would amount to like a giant log of Velveeta, which would be like, I guess a big thing of Velveeta is like a 5-pound block. These things were like 15 pounds, like 3 giant Velveetas in one. And it was just generically wrapped. Maybe there would be some powdered milk and powdered eggs and a few other things. And she would bring that home and she would cook for us with it. That's what food assistance was. And we didn't do great, and she certainly qualified for it. My grandfather was on black lung disability from his time in the mines. Again, this is the kind of person you would say these programs are for. And man, that was what we got. And we were grateful for it. The sheer volume of food that woman goes through, I really encourage you, since I couldn't play it for you, to go by the show notes today, click the link, and go listen to it. Because when you hear her talking about it, as she's showing the food, it hits way harder. I mean, the stack of pizzas, I couldn't watch the whole thing. I hadn't seen that one until I watched it with y'all. Holy shit. What did she say? It was 34 or 28 something pizzas? These like the junk level frozen garbage pizzas. Packrat says bread, powdered milk, butter, peanut butter, and excellent aged cheddar cheese, all in the box. I know it well. Yeah. And there was sometimes you got the aged cheddar. That's when you scored, baby. There was the Velveeta processed goop, and then there was the real cheddar that was actually pretty damn good. My grandma got all that stuff. Anyway, I just think we need reform to this program. I don't want to take food away from children, even though that's what they're going to say. I completely agree with everybody else. People have a right to eat whatever they want. We shouldn't be policing their diets. But these are the same people that loved it when New York City said you can't buy giant sodas. Like they put a prohibition on the giant soda cup, which is just dumb, right? And it does violate people's rights. And it violates the seller's rights and the buyer's rights. Completely agree, because you're spending your own money on it. So your objection is noted. And if I'm judge, you're overruled because it is not consistent with what we're talking about. Whether or not you have a right to go smoke dope. I completely advocate your right to smoke dope. And on rare occasions, I may go smoke a little with you. Okay? Totally open to that. Very libertarian to my principle there. But I ain't paying for yours. Especially if I don't know you. I mean, I'm not having a piece of my income taken away from me to provide you your dope or your crack pipe. There's people upset that we don't do that anymore because we used to. We had crack pipe kits we were giving out. Clean syringe kits we were giving out, paid for with taxpayer money. This is sickening. And if you think that's sick, then you should also think it's sick that we will give a person who says they need money to feed their children a blank check for up to X amount to go buy anything they want from the grocery store. We should not, that first tub of those, I mean, I thought it was really ironic that they were literally fudge rounds. I don't know what they actually were called, but they were round, fudgy-looking chocolate donut things, right? Wow. But it also got me thinking about something. And this is something I remain conflicted about. And I think maybe my confliction is right in the spot that is the truth, somewhere in the middle. You guys know I'm a proponent of keto and carnivore eating. I have never seen anybody actually do it right. Like when they say they're doing keto and that meant that they ordered wheat bread instead of white bread. No, you're not. When they say they're low carb and you look at what they eat and you go, well, you just ate 110 carbs today. That's not even carb restricted, let alone low carb. So, but when canned ham, I forgot about the canned ham. Yeah, that was pretty good too. But going back to it, I know it works because everybody that does it gets good results. Everybody uniformly. It's not just they lose weight either. All their measurable results get better. Though for some people, cholesterol will actually increase, but that probably means you had low cholesterol to begin with. Cholesterol is not the enemy that we think it is. Every cell in your body is literally made of cholesterol. The one nutrient you'll die without, other than you need protein and fat, but I mean like an adjunctive thing, a micronutrient, is salt. Deprive somebody of salt, you'll kill them. Every electrical process in your body runs on salt. There's a lot of things that they say are bad for us that are good for us. I get that too. However, when I was a kid, we got the government box of food, and my grandma cooked a bunch of stuff, and I'm just looking at what was our diet? What did we eat? Did we eat carbs? And the answer is affirmatively yes, we ate carbs. I would state, even though what I'm about to say is all legitimate and we ate all this stuff, we didn't eat it every day. It was portioned out. There was different days and different things. And sometimes during one part of a season, you did a lot of something. You might not see it again for a year. Some things that were really treats, you might see once or twice a year. Okay? So when I start explaining what we ate, put that temperance into it. The other side of it is, I damn well know we ate enough carbs consistently to not be keto or even primal or paleo. I guess primal paleo is subjective because some of those diets have a lot of potato and stuff like that in them. But we did eat bread. We ate bread. Now, how often do we eat bread? I'm going to say intermittently throughout the whole year and a hell of a lot around Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving. But what kind of bread did we eat? 90% of the time, it was bread my grandmother made by hand. 2, 3, 4 ingredients. She knew everything that went in it. She bought the best flour she could get. That's what we ate for bread. That box of government food, the cheese in it, you know what the favorite thing is for a Ukrainian grandma to do with that kind of cheese? Pierogies. Polish love them too, right? There's an overlap with Polish and Ukrainian food. She would make, hundreds of freaking pierogies. When she made pierogies, it was a production line, right? He's like, stay out of my kitchen, right? I think I inherited that from her because I'm the same way. Get out of my kitchen. Don't have a meeting in my kitchen when I'm cooking, right? Throw you out. She'd be in there all day long, and she would make dozens and dozens and dozens of these pierogies. She would short-term boil them like a blanch, and then pack them into trays, throw them in the freezer so they didn't all stick together, par freeze them, then package them in Ziploc bags and stuff them in the deep freezer. That way you could pull out one package and there'd be like 2 dozen pierogies in it. And then they would either be tossed back in boiling water to defrost and finish cooking and then serve with butter and onions, or you take the butter, you put it in the pan, you filter it off so it's clarified, and you throw the pierogies in the pan. You fry the pierogies till they're brown on the outside. You put them on the plate. You drizzle the brown butter over them with onions. Oh, my God. And I didn't know nothing about brown butter sage back then, but if I would have known, bro, it would have happened. So we ate that. And I would say every couple of weeks, dinner was pierogies. We ate potatoes all the time. Fried, mashed, various forms. Not a whole lot, but every once in a while there'd be a giant chicken pot pie with crust. And I mean big ass Mongo pie, no gravy in it. This was one of my grandma's secrets. She's probably going to roll in her grave, come back and haunt me tonight for giving away her secret. When she made a pot pie, she did make gravy. It didn't go into pie. She made the pie. She made the gravy. When you cut the piece out of the pie, you poured the gravy on the pie. So the pie stayed together when you pulled the slice out to eat it, because she didn't make individual pies for people. And when you put it in the refrigerator overnight and you brought it out to heat it up, it really came out a nice slice. And you got the gravy, but only when you needed it. And that way it didn't soak into the crust any more than you wanted it to. So we ate that. And I'd say there was a chicken pot pie once a month, once every other month. But what else do we eat? Tons of vegetables. Probably more than anything else other than meat. We ate vegetables. What kind of vegetables? Beans. Oh, you mean legumes? Sort of. Green beans and yellow wax beans. That was the primary beans. Cucumbers, whether they were fresh, made into like a Greek salad, or pickled. Right? All different ways we used to do cucumbers. You know, the red onion thing with the tzatziki sauce and the dill. Yeah, we did that too. Okay? Broccoli and cauliflower. These are all things that are totally okay on keto, right? Broccoli, cauliflower, tomatoes, have some carbs, but you know, how much tomato are you going to eat? We grew a lot of tomatoes. We ate a lot of tomatoes. End of the season, any tomatoes that weren't going to ripen before a frost, they've got the fried green tomato thing. But again, this was a seasonal treat. This was an end of summer treat, fried green tomatoes once or twice a year. Grew tons of herbs like dill and all. We grew corn. But we didn't eat like a lot of cornbread or anything like that. Any kind of processed corn. We ate corn on the cob, which, you know, I'm just going to say the day after you eat corn, if you use the bathroom, there's a case to be made that you're not actually getting that many calories from eating corn on the cob. It's more of a enjoyable conveyance system for corn, for butter and salt. We ate like that. And then what do we eat for meat? I would say from the grocery store, in order of what we most often ate: beef, pork, chicken, lamb. And that was because we had a high preference for beef. Pork was a less expensive thing. And pork was different in the 80s than it is today. We hadn't started calling it the other white meat yet because it wasn't white, right? It had color to it. I would say, you know, the chicken thing was like, we ate chicken. A lot of times the chicken, though, came from a farm chicken. But if we bought it in the store, it was inexpensive and we considered it cheap. And cheap said with kind of like a slanderous tone, like, we'll eat it, we like it, but we would be, you know, we can only spend so much money this month. So a couple, 3 days this month, we're eating chicken. Lamb was just not as available as it is today. We loved it. But it also was very similar to probably the meat we ate more of than any of these meats. And it cost us no money: venison. We ate venison all the time. Venison was part of our food pyramid, I guess, right? Like it was the top, it was the base of the pyramid in some ways. There's statutes of limitations on this shit, I'm sure, so I'm not in any trouble for telling you this, but every year I lost my license 2 or 3 times. Well, why would you do that? Well, your license came with a deer tag back then. You got to shoot 1 deer a year. Well, if you try to get the deer home without the tag in the ear and the game warden catches you, got a problem. If you get the deer home with the tag on it, you process the deer, get it all done, and put it away, and that you never saw, talked to, encountered a warden, and you just lost your license. And when you filled out the form and it said, "Did you take a deer this year?" No. And the guy running the center supply store knew exactly what's going on. Another $12, another deer in the freezer. And all of us would put 2 to 3 deer in the freezer. Plus, I've said this before, but like little girls and stuff, once they turn 12, honey, you're going to hunter safety course. Uncle Pete will sit next to you and make sure you pass your, I don't want to hunt. Nobody cares, honey. And then she would be in the truck on the first day of deer season, sleeping in the back seat with a blanket and shit. And then it'd be like, "Come on, honey, you shot a deer. Let's put your tag on it," right? Like there was no shortage of venison. Then there was all the small game. Squirrel, grouse, pheasant, rabbit, like tons of meat went into the freezers, plural, every year like that, right? I'm gonna star that for later so it doesn't sidetrack me. I'm just trying to lay down like what we did was very common. Like if you think what I'm saying is unusual, wow, Jack really did grow up kind of a crazy way with a crazy family. Yeah, but that's not it. Everybody around us did this. Then the other thing we ate tons of was fish. Tons of fish, mostly catfish, bass, and trout. And mushrooms. And we foraged the hell out of mushrooms. That's a pretty diverse diet, right? That's a pretty diverse diet. And I didn't quite get what Gank was saying there. He says, I like that. No one cares, honey. That is what we used to tell the kids. Like, no one cares, honey. You're going to do it anyway, even though you're not going to do it. We need you to have another tag, right? A Texas whitetail is nothing compared to a PA whitetail either, right? Like a mature buck in Pennsylvania, like a dressed weight is like 180 pounds. Like down here, it's like 80 pounds. It's not the amount of meat people think it is. Like people think like you're getting a cow or something, but it's a significant bump for a family to add a deer or two a year. And we would make we'd make a whole deer in a jerky. We'd make a whole deer in a sausage, except for like the really prime cuts, and we would make like a whole deer in a ring bologna. And then we would do several deer, just roast, chops, steaks, that type of thing. Bone broth, we rendered tallow, we cooked in deer tallow, like we did all that shit, and we ate a lot of fish and a lot of mushrooms. And do you know how many of us were obese? None. Do you know how many people around me were obese? Very few. And the one I can think of from school, his name was Jason, and he was extremely obese, and he lived on things like hot dogs with buns and freezer pizza. Nobody was nobody was obese in general. And the people walking around that had the belly, they were all like coal miners and shit that drank their weight in beer every day. It was legitimately a beer belly. And they weren't fat here. They were fat down here. Gank says he knew 2 obese people. I think we had one other one in school, but it was a girl, and she was so much younger than me, I can't tell you what her name was. She was like a sophomore when I was a senior or something like that. And it was not a huge school, but it was about 300 to 400 kids per class, right? So about 1,200 kids in the school. It was really more like 900 kids in the school till my last year when they merged another school into us when they closed it down. All I'm saying is that's not a keto diet. That's certainly not a carnivore diet. I wouldn't even call it a low-carb diet. What I would call it is very close to a primal paleo-type diet. Very close to. And when I start looking back and I think about the fact that most of the country wasn't obese, right? There's a lot of people in the chat right now that are resonating with this. I grew up like this too, Jack. I didn't know that many fat people. All you gotta do is go find, and not like a staged picture of like Miami Beach with all the hotties out with their G-strings and shit. Like just a normal everyday picture where like somebody's taking a picture of their family and then you can see everybody on the beach in the background. Go look at a recent picture like that and go find a picture from like 1984 of the beach. I grew up Pennsylvania, yes, but before that, Jacksonville, Florida. We were at the beach all the time. Back then, we had a very similar diet. Not quite the same, different region, but we ate tons of shrimp. Because you could pull over on the side of the road and you could buy shrimp for like 70 cents a pound. Fresh caught, big jumbo, head on, still alive, flipping around shrimp for 70 cents a pound. Why? Because the guy a few hours earlier that's selling them out of a cooler caught him with a cast net. That was why. We fished a lot in the rivers that were brackish water, and in the ocean that was salt water. So we ate a lot more saltwater fish. But I also fished like there's ponds everywhere in Florida. You have a pond, so you can put a pond in, don't stock it, wait a few years. It's probably got bluegill and bass and catfish in it, right? So I caught shit like that. I ate it all the time. I used to BB gun squirrels out of the tree and eat them like over a fire and a stick in the woods, right? But again, a lot of people were eating this way. Even the people that were living out of the grocery stores, they were buying whole foods and cooking. And I always think about this when I talk about this subject. What happened, we talked about a lot in 1971. The entire economy, not of this country, of the world, shifted because the U.S. dollar was it still is the global reserve currency. We left the gold standard. And immediately, we talked about this yesterday a bit, moms started going to work. It wasn't because they were liberated by the feminists and then they could get a job. By 1970, if a woman wanted a job, she could get a job. I'm sorry. Was there maybe a gender pay gap in 1970, even though there isn't one now? Probably, but they could get a job. And they could build a career if that's what they want to do. Like I said, in the 20s, we had females that became billionaires. The woman that bought Bird's Eye was one of the first billionaires in the United States for women. I can't think of her name now, but Bird's Eye was the headliner of the company, but it wasn't Bird's. She owned something else. And she bought the guy out that created the flash freezing method of Bird's Eye. So women, and Pepperidge Farm was founded by a woman. She became not a billionaire, but she died worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's $1 billion company today. So that was always possible. But women didn't want to go to work. As women went to work and as inflation raged, the families that had two incomes economically did better than the families that didn't. And they spent more money, which fueled inflation, which caused more women to have to go to work. When women go to work, they don't cook for their families. And again, I'm not saying the women should be doing all the cooking. I'm just saying that in general, when somebody stays home and doesn't work, they have time to see to things like the food. Many times, even back then in the olden days, I can tell you for a fact, when it was like a steak that was going to be cooked on a grill, Dad cooked. The difference was Mom took the steak out of the freezer in the morning, and everybody knew Dad was going to cook when he got home. And then maybe Mom took care of some of the sides, and then Dad did the fire grill, right? This was how America lived, and you could see the general size of the human body expand in proportion to the number of households that become two-income households. I don't even think it matters who works. I said, the stay-at-home husband thing is not that common, but it works for some people, and that works too. Somebody is there to manage the family's needs. That's the thing. You notice how rich people are never fat? I know there's Lizzo and a few. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the multi-millionaire next door types. The guys that have like real estate empires and shit like that. You don't even know their names. But every once in a while, one of them shows up. They're always fit. If you see their families are always healthy. They're never obese. They eat real food. And even if both parents are engaged in a business, they have enough money. They're paying somebody to be like a housekeeper type or a cook. And they're making sure that they're eating well, because I'm going to tell you the truth. A lot of people say that the reason people eat like that lady, they say it's poor's food. Okay? A lot of times the reason people eat the way that they eat today, it's not really cost. It's not really cost. It's ease. And I've got a new understanding of it as an older man by having the grandkids here with us. And on days that the grandkids are here and my son and my daughter-in-law want to do something that evening, like go have dinner or go to a baseball game or something, I'm like, what? No, I don't want to do that because I'm going to be in bed by 9:30. And you talk to my son, I realize like 9:30 is usually about when they're finally done for the day and sitting down for a little bit of time on the couch before everybody goes to bed. And there's nights that are a lot later than that. And, as you get older and you're not parenting anymore, you kind of forget that. I don't remember that when I was a kid. Now, I remember my dad worked most nights 8, 9 o'clock at night. I had a bad childhood. I'm talking about observation of my friends. I don't remember that. I remember families had dinner at a specific freaking time, and your buddy Tommy or Mikey or whatever, like, I gotta go home at dinner. We can meet later, but I gotta go home at dinner. Like it was an expectation. And I think this is where we're in real trouble is that we have boxed ourselves into a situation. It's not just the food. It's the form of the food, the ultra processing of the food. We have to use care with our words. When people say, I don't eat any processed food. You eat sausage? Yeah, that's processed food. That's processed food. Do you ever eat scrambled eggs? Yeah, that's technically processed. But do you like cut up peppers and bacon and mix them into your eggs with some cheese? Oh, yeah, that's processed. That's anything you do that alters the state of the thing into something more that integrates things. And it's like it's not processed if you cook a steak and put it next to fried green beans and a grilled potato. That's not processed at all. I would say that really isn't. But when we mash a potato and we mash garlic into it, it's processed. I don't think that means it's bad. Ultra processed, chemically processed, right? Processed with things that should have never been in the food in the first place. Emulsified oils into the thing. When you read the ingredients list, there's words there that you don't understand. This is a big part of the problem. But most of that food is so shelf stable and designed to be so convenient, out of the freezer into the microwave onto the plate, or out of the refrigerator into the microwave onto the plate, or out of the counter into the pot, stir in a cup of water, boil it, put it on. And if you work 2-family income, or a single mom or single dad, you got 2 or 3 kids and they need to eat, you have to do this every day. I think we've boxed ourselves into a corner where we default to easy. I think the need for 100% convenient food is first in the problem. And the cheapness of the garbage food and being able to feed a lot of people for a little bit of money is number 2 in the problem. They're both big problems. But I think that's led us to where people like me and Ken are like, you got to go keto, you got to go carnivore, you got to do, Again, it works, but I wonder why it works and how much of it has to do with how damaged the person is. What I mean by that is, let's say that you have eaten the standard American diet, but you're 22 years old and you're in reasonable shape. Maybe you're a little pudgy a few places for a 22. Maybe if you were 48, I would be like, man, you look great. But at 22, they're like, bro, yeah, you're getting a little Pillsbury Doughboy thing going on there a little bit. Maybe you need to do something about it. And I think if that person goes onto a diet like I ate in the 80s, maybe they won't turn around as quick, but I think they'll be fine. And I think when they're 40, they'll probably won't have the Pillsbury Doughboy thing at that point, let alone when they had a little bit at 22. However, if I think about the state I put myself into when I did this about, 6 years ago now, I think I had no choice. I had to go all the way. And it would be like, if you had a person that they drank themselves near death, but they were going to live without a transplant of their liver, but they had done some damage and it was something they could recover from. They can't drink at all. And you can have a couple of gin and tonics 2 or 3 times a week and it's not going to hurt you at all. They can't do what you can do. And I think for a lot of people who really trash their health, they need to go to like a pure keto or a pure carnivore to recover. And some of them may be able to recover and then ease back into a more, let's call it a 70s, 80s diet. But some of them never will be because they already did so much damage to themselves. But I think if we can change the way America's eating and go back to that, we'll stop making more of those people. There will always be obese people. But honest to God, go back and find like freak show fat people from like the early 1900s when freak shows were still a thing, where everybody got offended by everything. We used to have literally freak shows, like the yak woman and shit, and people would go look at them. And go look at the fat man from those freak shows. They got around without a rascal scooter. They didn't have them yet, right? They wouldn't need if the freak show fat guy from 1910 walked past you on a main street of town today, you wouldn't even notice. You'd be like, oh, he's kind of a big dude. Yeah. But you wouldn't think of that as freak show fat. We have TV shows now called like My 600-Pound Life. We have freaking caskets being made that you can put a car in damn near. there's something wrong here. And we need to do something about it, seriously, as a nation. Because our life expectancy is literally going backwards. We're living less duration. And the drugs have a lot to do with it, too. And I mean the pharmaceutical drugs. And this mindset that everything is doctor fix it, doctor fix it, my knees hurt because you're 150 pounds overweight. You don't need a drug. You need a dietary change. You need exercise. You need to condition your knees, and that'll help you lose your ass, and then everything will be better. We don't even think that way anymore. And when you talk that way, what do they say? It's elitist, it's misogynist, it's against brown people and black people and any other thing they can come with, anything other than facing the responsibility. Anyway, I've talked about it long enough. Liberty Garden, real quick, and then we'll move on. I think paleo is a good maintenance diet after achieving your goals with keto. I think for a lot of people, that is the case. And I think the older you are, the more it's true. And you might even have a person that's like 45 that looks better than a person that's 20. But the 45-year-old may need the keto or carnivore more than the 20-year-old who's heavier because the duration of the damage is less. And the 20-year-old definitely can migrate back to like a paleo maintenance diet, where the 45-year-old may not be able to. May or may not. We don't know. It depends on how much damage was done. Okay, moving on. AI speak. I just thought this was an interesting thing to think about. Right now, if somebody uses AI to write something and they don't know the tricks that I teach people how to do in like the ChatGPT course, I'm like, AI wrote that. I can literally read like the first 2 sentences. I'm like, AI wrote that. And then there's some that are short social media posts. And it's like, yeah, he didn't just do this. He installed it. You're like, fucking ChatGPT wrote that, bro. No, it didn't. Come on, man. Just admit it and learn to use the tool better, right? However, there's an interesting thing about language. It evolves. And do you know who evolves language? Children evolve language. Children evolve language. We see it blatantly with the slang. And slang has a way of like ebbing in like a fad and going away, right? That's really bad, man. But they actually mean it's good, right? That was us when we were like freaking 7 years old. Oh, that's so bad. And our parents were like, what do you mean? I thought it was good. Oh, it is good. You're old. You don't understand, right? And your parent was like 32. It was freaking hilarious, really, when you think about it, right? And those things kind of ebb. Like, no one says that anymore. People would say now it's badass. But where did that come from? That came from that first influx of the slang, and then it became a lasting saying that everybody understands what badass means, right? Or like, I guess it was about 10 years ago or so, like shit like Delulu started showing up for delusion, or dead ass, right? As a dead ass, and it's actually, it means dead ass serious. So are you serious? Dead ass. You're like, what the hell is that? But it was kids. But as we talked about, some of this stuff sticks around and it transitions to other things. And I'll tell you a great book series to read. And if nothing else, just read the first book. And it's a 4-book series called the Odyssey series. And it's by an author who, a very prolific fiction author from the 70s and 80s named Piers Anthony. And that series has 4 books, and they all follow the same formula. A family exists as basically hominids at the dawn of humanity. And that, so like they're climbing trees and hiding in the water and shit like that and whatever. And they're not even fully human yet. But the family then is reborn through reincarnation, and the author's telling at different times in history. They don't know they've been reborn, but they have certain kinships and relationships that seem, other world, just like we have in the real world. Like, I feel like I've known you before or whatever. And they always progress to an eventual apocalyptic, dystopian ending. But it's a great history lesson throughout the book, because the author draws on historical fact and historical events and writes those facts and events into this family story as it progresses. And they learn from fire to blacksmithing. It's really cool. I read this long before I was into prepping as we think of it or whatever. I read this like in the early 90s. A guy that I worked with at Lockheed turned me on to this author. And the first book is called Isle of Women. And if you want to read one and see if you want to read the others, that's the one to read. Piers Anthony, Isle of Women. I think it's probably super cheap on Kindle. It might even be on Kindle Unlimited at this point. It's been around forever. But in all the books, there's at some point where a child is taken into captivity. Not for the perverted shit our elitists do today. It was the way of the world. When one side invaded another side and dominated them in warfare, if that child's family was killed, the society essentially adopted the child, sometimes very benevolently, sometimes somewhat benevolently, basically training them to be a slave or whatever. It's just, author is not expressing an opinion of good or bad, just using the reality of the time to explain it. But in that, these children of multiple cultures would come together and be raised together as a group, and they would evolve the language of the native group that brought them in. The original group would have their language evolved by the next generation. Okay? All that to say, if our kids are using AI today, and they are, and they're having conversations with AI, and they are, will they pick up the AI speak and start to use it in the real world? The ones that, don't completely crutch with it and they learn how to write for themselves, if they're reading a lot of AI-generated content, they're engaging in a lot of AI-generated content, will particular idioms and patterns in the AI start to be used by humans? And when that happens, how will you know if it's AI or human? And I'll tell you a story that drives this home. It's in my book, for those of you who have read it. And it's about becoming more like the people you're around. When I was in the Army, this would have been about 1991, 1992, at some point within my unit, I don't know who the hell started it. It was a dumb saying, right? And that's my point of bringing it. It was stupid. That's why I put it in the book, because about what you're about to hear happened anyway, even though it was stupid. So when you're in the military, for those of you who never were, the concept of becoming more like the people around you is on friggin' steroids. They call it uniformity. It's by design. Everybody dresses the same, walks the same. Literally, you fold your underwear the same way at the same dimensions. And yes, they check with a ruler. So when I say that everybody behaves the same way, I mean it. You learn your general orders, right? And you have to, I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post only when properly relieved. General order number 1. How long has it been since I needed to know that? And do you see what I'm saying? So somebody in the unit started saying this stupid saying, if you're scared, say you're scared. Anytime anybody seemed weak in any way, even if it wasn't something that fear was involved, like, we should do this. I don't know. If you're scared, say you're scared. Yes, I know it's stupid. Here's my point. I went on leave after about 6 months of this shit going on. Go on leave, go home, hang out with a bunch of like high school buddies and shit like that. That was a mistake. But I must have said it 2 or 3 times over about a week of leave. I went home like a year later. I heard people saying that stupid ass saying that I didn't even know. I'm like in a bowling alley playing pool with a guy that I do know, and I hear the guy on the other side say something like, hey, you want to put $5 on it? And the guy goes, no, I ain't got no money. You're scared, say you're scared. I'm like, holy shit. What the hell? How did that? We had stopped saying it in the unit. We had realized how stupid it was. It infected Pottsville, Pennsylvania for who knows how long, because I said it a couple times. If that can happen, if you have millions of young people using AI and reading AI output, do you not think AI is going to start infecting our language with its language and its patterns? I do. Then here's the interesting thing. Can a social engineer then slowly, like the boiling frog metaphor, which is it's a myth, but it is a good metaphor, slowly start changing it over time and alter us? And this is part of why I told you 3 years ago when this shit really picked up. You need to learn how to use it so that you're consciously manipulating it instead of subconsciously having it manipulate you. I just think that's an interesting thing. And I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. And Liberty Guard says, my 2 Gen Zs hate AI and somehow recognize it immediately because they're not using it yet. So it's different. But what happens when it becomes the same? This is not going to be a tool you're going to be able to afford to not use in your life. It's going to be like saying, I'm not going to use a calculator. That's how integrated our lives are going to be. But we have to maintain the status of the master. And that's what, just on the course, that's what we try to teach you in the course is you are in control. And if you are not in control, if you defer to it, if you accept the answer it gives, even if it's right, you should, like, if it differs with what you think, you should shred it and be sure that you're wrong, like you should do with any decision you make. Last, I thought this was interesting. SoftBank just bought a 10% stake for $2 billion in Intel. Intel, as huge as a company as it was, it's kind of teetering on the edge of going insolvent. This pretty much, it says Intel saved, SoftBank is investing $2 billion. And it says Intel saved ? And I would say it still is a question. $2 billion ain't that much. It's a lot of money, but it ain't what it used to be, and it ain't that much money for SoftBank. But the reason I'm bringing this up, and again, AI says I'm wrong, but I'm not sure. I feel there's something going on here. SoftBank is not going into business with Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald and Strike for no reason at all. It's not a side quest. It's a calculated maneuver. And I start thinking about what is the business model going to be of 21 Capital. And it is Bitcoin-powered lending. There's no doubt that's what it is. But if you are designing formulas to make lending infinite, which is the entire plan with Bitcoin lending, to make it infinite, to make it where that customer can, you don't ever want to call your customer out. You don't ever want to take his collateral. You're covered, you're good, but your business model to become recurrent, you want that customer to stay your customer for life. Always hold, never sell, borrow and then die. Like that's the market you're serving. And with businesses, it takes it to another level. It is the new banking system of the world. Now, we just talked about AI. Intel, currently anyway, and with a 10% holding, you're not going to change this, makes nothing that really works for the world of Bitcoin mining. So that ain't it. But 21 Capital doesn't look like it has anything to do with being a mining company to me in any way. It doesn't look like what they want. Like their picks and shovels, not mine. Okay? Selling into the space doesn't really help them either. Jack Dorsey and his group have just brought out a new American-made chipset to start building ASIC miners in America. They're now available. They're shipping. They're being made into miners. Okay, so somebody's got that covered. I don't see it there. But don't you think that you would, if you're going to have leverage capital across the globe from peons like you and me using Bitcoin in their retirement as a lending instrument, all the way up to giant multi-billion-dollar corporations, don't you think in this modern world you're going to use AI to develop models? Isn't that interesting? And isn't that market going to explode? And in spite of chip manufacturers like Samsung investing billions of dollars building plants here in Texas and things like that, I think there's a connection. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I'm going to have to dig deeper to find it. And you guys are welcome to dig deep yourself and see if you can figure out what it is. But I don't think you randomly, as SoftBank, just dump $2 billion into a company like Intel only for a direct financial win when it's a gamble to begin with. But there's an interesting thing here. Trump is two things that no one expected. I got balloons going now. I guess I got my reactions on. But Trump is two things I don't think we ever expected a president to be anytime soon anyway. He's a Bitcoin president and he's an AI president. He's all in on both of these technologies. Guess who's sniffing about taking a stake too in Intel? The United States government, who just made a deal with another company to grab a piece of the cost of processors for next generation AI equipment when they sell it to China. So they were previously prohibited from selling it to China. Now you can sell it to China, but we get 15% of every sale you make to China. I called it an inverse or reverse tariff, even though that's not what it's actually called. It's what it functionally is. A tariff is a tax on something to bring it into the country, and this is a tax on something to take it out of the country. And you know who's going to pay that one? China. I almost wonder if there's a whole new model here. The things China must buy, oh, you're going to tariff it? What if we pre-tariff your ass? How's that going to work? Right? Like the stuff you really have to buy from us? Yeah, if you have to buy it, maybe we're going to tax it before it leaves, and you're going to pay that because it passes through. The customer pays the tax. I don't know. Something's up here. As I'm closing up, if any of you have any ideas here as to what that would be, just type idea in all caps as to why a company that is clearly taking a pathway towards being deeply ingrained in the Bitcoin ecosystem would take a stake in Intel. I don't believe in coincidences that way. I believe in mysterious coincidences that are actually fate. But I don't believe a mega corporation worth billions of dollars writes a check for $2 billion in an isolation, especially when they've telegraphed an entire sea change in what they're doing going forward. So I'd love to know what you think. Lily Farm Foods says, Jack Mallers every week says Bitcoin and AR are the future. I agree. And I watch his show. I love, you know what I love about Jack Mallers? He's like me. He's young, so he ain't like me that way. He's an old school podcaster in the new school world. His podcast looks a lot like mine. He's usually in his closet, right? Which is actually a really big, rich woman's closet kind of thing. It's the best room he has in the house for an office. That's why he programs Strike and all in there. He does come for money. But when I look, the thing is, right, he comes for money, and now he has lots of money. And he could have, he could be in there with the pot. All right, I'm back. He could be. I think I jacked up the mic when I pulled it real close, gain up to the microphone, and like an NPR production or something. He could have all kinds of special effects. He could have all kinds of shit going on, right? Where it looks all professional, but he doesn't. He's just hanging out, chilling, and talking. And very few new podcasters use that model. Very few. I prefer that model, not just because I do it, but I didn't really plan to talk about this, but we'll go ahead and use this as a wrap up. I haven't seen anybody come through with an idea yet about why Intel's being stakes being taken in Intel by SoftBank. But the whole point of podcasting was not to recreate radio shows and TV shows on the internet. It never was. I'm going to be bringing on early next month Patrick Seaman, who was the very first employee at broadcast.com. And I know him from all the way back in those days. It was him, one other guy, I can't think of his name now, and Mark Cuban. That was the three when I first met them that long ago. And broadcast actually had podcasting before there was podcasting. It wasn't RSS empowered. It was basically sequential, ongoing audiobooks that were released a chapter at a time, maybe once a week or every day. And it was incredibly popular before podcasting was actually podcasting. And then Adam Curry did what he did, integrating RSS with the ability of blogs to push out a feed. and made the kind of podcasting that blew the industry up. And that was quite a few years later. Adam Curry's show, No Agenda, to kind of date my show, if you're new to it, No Agenda is probably the oldest continuously operating podcast in the world. And since Curry's the podfather, I'd guess so, it's 6 months older than TSP. That's how long we've been around. And as we created this podcasting space, I started in my car with a little MP3 recorder. It was guerrilla as shit. And so I think when you have these, Fox News and MSNBC and NBC hosts and shit, and they're all like, we have a podcast now. No, you don't. You put your fucking commercial garbage bullshit with all the garbage bullshit attached to it, all of the answering to higher ups, all of the corporate bullshit, all of the locked in what you can and can't say because your sponsors don't want you to go out. You think you're ever going to hear hosts that are on Fox News that also don't have a podcast tell you about the dangers of pharmaceutical drugs like we do here? They're not going to do that because Pfizer or Merck or whatever is going to make a phone call and be like, you need to shut him up. You need to shut him up. If he doesn't shut up, we're going to pull the plug. And I just don't feel like it's podcasting. I feel like podcasting's bifurcated now into actual podcasters and phony ass bitches. Now, I'm not saying some of the people with high production value aren't real podcasters. Drinking Bros. That's a legit podcast, in my opinion, even though it has high production value, a little bit nicer studio and all. But most of the shit that's coming out today, it ain't old school. Jack Mahler's is new school, old school, and I respect that, man. I respect the hell out of that. I like Jack anyway. He's one of my dream interviews, by the way, guys. If anybody knows anybody that knows somebody that can get me in touch with Jack Mahler's, I would put a Jack Mahler's interview in the same group that I have people like Ron Paul and Gary Vaynerchuk and Adam Curry in. Like it would be that, and Natalie Burnell. Like it would be that level of person for me to interview. So if anybody can make that happen, that'd be great. Real quick before we leave, idea, all the things says maybe Intel has a patent they want. You don't get access to that 10% though. You'd be easier to buy it. So I like the idea, but I just don't think it's it. All right, real quick before we go, let's go ahead and remind you can help support this show by doing your online shopping wear at tspaz.com. That's right, TSPAZ, tspaz.com. Item of the day today is the Thermo Maven Instant Read Thermometer. I brought this to you for the first time ever a few months ago. It is already in the top 10 number one selling items on T-Spaz for 2025. So a lot of you bought it already. So why bring it around again? I had it here a month ago. They put it on sale, and if you already bought it, I'm sorry that you won't get the sale price, but it is 27% off, an already great price. This is the best instant read thermometer I have ever bought. It is incredibly accurate. It is incredibly repeatable in its accuracy. And the best part about it, it uses a regular freaking battery. I don't remember now off the top of my head if it's AAA or AA, but it's one of them. You take one screw out, you pop the battery out, you pop the new battery in. Why does that matter? Because most of them use like one of the little disc, like hearing aid batteries or like for your thermal scope and all, and they all suck. Yes, they do. I have hereby decreed, I have spoken, like the little dude in Mandalorian, I have spoken, right? They suck. When you take the old shitty battery out and try to put the new one back in, you have to be a freaking technical engineer to get the damn thing to close right. And none of them do the most basic thing that should be built into the intelligence of these things. When you open it up, it turns on. That's good. When you set it down and forget to close it, it eats the battery to death. All of them seem to do that. This one, after you set it down for 30 seconds, it has enough intelligence built into it to turn itself the F off. Get this while it's on sale. 27% off. I don't know why they didn't do it even 30, but it's 27% off. It's already a good price. It belongs in your kitchen, and you can always help support us by doing any of your online shopping started where tspaz.com. You can go to Vivor there, go to Amazon there. No matter what you buy, you help us out. It's an easy thing to do. Consider joining the Members Brigade. You'll get really great discounts, and that's another way you can support us. And pick up a copy of my book, Laws of Life, Ditch the System, Design Your Life by Jack Spirko, available on Amazon. All you do is search for Laws of Life there. You'll find it. Laws of Life. We have a bunch of reviews, like 4.9 stars, really great feedback on it. The best feedback I've gotten, by the way, is from teenagers. Teenagers who parents of this audience bought the book for them and gave it to them. One is from a young girl, hit me right in the heart. There were things that were hard. One of the things she said, there were things that were hard to me to understand, but then there was always a story that made it understandable. I think this girl was like 17 years old. This book can help anybody, but it really can help the young people in your life. Take care, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow. We're going to have Olga Kadek back on from Mushroom Mountain. We're going to be talking about the medicinal uses of mushrooms tomorrow.